All right, thank you and everyone for joining us for another Twitter Space. Today is November 3rd, 2022, and this is episode 69 of the ledgerscale Internet of Value Open Forum. Now, ledgerscale Foundation was founded with two goals in mind. One, we want to provide educational services to not only our community, but to the entire digital asset community, and to help scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, we intend to one day run hardware not only on the XRP ledger, but to all of the distributed ledger technology networks that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. We host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday, we host a focus topic space from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And if I could just ask if everyone could give us a follow on Twitter at ledgerscale, turn those notifications on so you know we're going live, and as well as at the bottom right, I guess if you have a plus sign there today like I do, if you could just retweet the space, so that hopefully other people find this information valuable in the future. Are you there, Karma? Oh, he might be having a technical difficulty. It was weird. I saw him as co-host, and then you went to listener, and then to co-host.
Yeah, that was weird. But yeah, no, I'm here. Um, and yeah, so basically the point is here we're here to just engage the community. And so if anybody has any questions, there's not a specific topic on the open forums. If you're curious about it, I guarantee somebody else is. So please just speak up. It doesn't matter. Please don't think it's a stupid question. It's not. But if you do speak up, just be cordial and if Death or I don't know something, usually somebody else in the group will. So, you found a good place to get information. And welcome to the space. Oh,
Yeah, good morning, guys. It's weird how that the little Twitter Plus is now coming up in the corner there for messaging and stuff like that.
Interesting, right? They changed it. Yeah. Bubble's gone.
what is it?
No bubble today. You got the plus sign at the bottom right.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, they're working on this product, man. I guarantee you they got a whole team working on these spaces product. I mean, this is a beast of a product to build. I can't imagine the back end, like the hardware that's required to support the service. I mean, you're just going to have to, geez. It's an undertaking. I mean, I like to complain about Twitter because I don't really like it, but still, you got to give credit where credit's due. Did you see the SEC delay death? Surprise!
What do you mean delay?
Was that on the Ripple case karma or?
Requesting a response? You mean?
No, because they're blaming the amicus briefs. So now
Yeah.
they want till I think it said November 30th.
Yeah, they want to respond to the amicus briefs. Yeah.
They postponed it by a
Was
month.
expected. Yeah, you know what? I expected it when I saw all these amici briefs come, I said, "Really, guys? You guys really waited to the last minute to do it? Like, of course this is going to extend the case."
Well, and I think I saw something yesterday where they wanted a time limit. So like no more amicus briefs or amici or whatever the right term is. No more briefs after I don't know some November something. And
Poor
I'm
judge.
not surprised.
Karma.
I actually think that's reasonable. Like that's
Karma.
reasonable.
Poor
What?
judge. You know why? Can you imagine that you're a judge, right? And you probably got some grasp of financial systems because otherwise you wouldn't do some case like this. And
That's
you have to
necessary.
digest,
But
you have to digest this entire case and this entire technology.
oh, she's got her work cut out for her, man. I mean,
I mean,
let's not.
like how deep is the due diligence from the judge gonna go? Like, Jesus Christ, what is tied up into this? It's like the same that we've been doing over and over in these Twitter spaces when we go left or right in society and the thing that it impacts. This judge is probably sitting at home and it's like, fuck, I haven't thought of this angle either. It's poor judge.
Well, just think about all the stuff she's going to have to read. There's what 11 or something amici, or is it amici or amicus?
It's amicus, but I don't know what the
I
plural
think
is.
technically it's amicus, yeah. Or if
Uh,
it's just amici is single, amicus I think multiple.
Hey, I
Dude,
got a
you got
question.
all of these briefs are like 20, 30 pages. Plus, I think they put a page limit on the.
I think BLK 443 has a question, Karma. Sorry.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm wondering because the library. Guess we waiting on like the summary judgment or the judge's decision for that. I'm wondering if he's waiting to see what's going on in the Ripple and all these amicus briefs that are piling on before he makes
For
a
sure.
decision. Because that
Yeah,
I have to assume that's what's happening since he's over
my
his head.
speculation. Well,
You mean the judge in that case?
for the
Or are you
library
talking
case,
about
yeah,
the proprietor?
yeah, I'm under the same kind of feeling personally because that summary judgment wasn't much of a summary judgment. It was basically like an extension on the judge's part. He's not ready to make a decision.
Well, think about how much I don't know I haven't been following the library case, but to your point, Steak, the amount of crap that this judge is going to have to read and comprehend.
Oh man, this is gonna go fucking deep. And I think it's good that it postponed because it's after midterms, because otherwise it gets political as well, right?
How the hell crypto is political? I don't. To me,
Well,
that's like
here's the conjecture. This thing, this court case, not just versus Ripple, but like everything that the SEC is doing, the library court case, the chain court case, the body court case, then there's the CFTC, then you've got the whole financial system that wants to go left or right, like securities, utilities, commodities. There's so many people that have an interest in this, a vested interest in this. And it makes sense that Democrats and Republicans want to do something different with the financial system. So it would be very good and healthy for the entire market if midterms would have been finished, because otherwise, up until the midterms, you might get politics into this whole equation as well that say, yeah, you got to go left, and then the other party says, no, you got to go right. And I think that it's actually pretty good that it's postponed by at least a month. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it simplifies things because it gets politics out of it. Um, but apart from that, it's a lot to unpack for the judge. A fuckload.
yeah. The more you can keep politics out of it, because I think of it like this is we're talking about at least regarding XRP. Now, Internet of Value is a little more broad subject, but with like the doing the payments, like this is like making a plumbing system political. Like there's nothing political, man. Just
Yeah, but here's the thing. The weird thing is that climate is political.
what is?
Climate change is political.
Well, I think that's ridiculous, but I don't want to go there. But
Yeah,
Anything with anything with money is political, unfortunately.
exactly. That's the point. So
that's true. That's
it's a good thing that the midterms will be over, so we don't have to go into politics and just keep it to the tech and the finance because that's enough to unpack as it is.
well, and this poor judge. I mean, she's obviously a legal expert. Okay, and like, what are the three things we always talk about? You got to have some regulatory knowledge, some software and systems knowledge, and some financial markets knowledge. I mean, I highly doubt this judge is. Well, it is in New York though, but I highly doubt she's like a financial expert, and I'm almost can guarantee she doesn't know much about software or networks or anything like this.
But I think the good thing though with this judge is that she still knows what's a good or bad argument. And it seems from the SEC at this point has been just contradicting themselves, making bad arguments. You have 11 amicus briefs pretty much saying that, well, XRP has utility, which is
For
what the
sure, but a
SEC.
judge isn't stupid. A judge wants to know why the SEC is behaving like it is.
Well, right. But I'm just saying, like,
I don't think.
regardless, she knows what a credible argument still is,
Yeah,
even if she doesn't have to know like the ends. I mean, she will reading over the case or whatnot, but as she has a good head on her shoulders to understand, what's actually a credible argument or a good argument to make.
For sure,
So,
but by now the judge knows that this whole thing is bigger than that she thinks, just by the sheer amount of money that's involved.
well,
oh
that
yeah,
for
most
sure.
definitely. Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she's a quite smart lady. And I don't know, she'll chew through this, but the way that they've already. I mean, that one. I don't know if you guys listened to that one court hearing where they had
I
him
didn't.
show up in person.
Who
That
showed up
that
in
was
person?
they made all the lawyers show up in person in court,
Oh, right. Okay.
and you could listen in if you got in like right at the moment because it filled up instantly.
Was that the
Um,
last one they had?
as far as I know, yeah.
Okay, so it was like I think people are saying like their third string lawyer or something.
Oh,
Uh,
it was
was that?
it was brutal.
Yeah, it
It
was
was
bad.
brutal. I mean, I'm not on the SEC's side in this case, but I honestly I felt bad for the poor lady on the SEC that they sent some junior attorney in there to represent the SEC. This poor lady.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Well, I mean, I really felt bad for her, like as an individual. Like,
No, but the
dude,
SEC wants to lose this court case. They just want to control the timeline, but they want to lose it.
I wondered that when the case first started,
They
and
don't
some of
care
the
about
arguments.
winning. That's the whole thing. Many people focus on this whole court case in a matter of winning and losing. Yeah, Ripple's got a pretty solid court case. They're probably going to win hands down. That's not the issue. The issue is what is it going to become, a security or a utility, and when is it going to happen?
I think it's a timing thing too. I agree, and I wondered, or I pontificated that, like, why did the SEC its case? Like, this is a really bad. This is not a good, like,
I don't know.
solid argument.
I conjectured before why they want to postpone it, and it's not that difficult to understand, honestly. Because if your currency is leverage over the world, you kind of want to control the flow of things.
Well, I think they're buying the money center bank some time.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Do you
I
know
Yeah,
how
it's,
wondered,
much?
it's
like,
an
why couldn't
incumbent.
they?
These are the incumbents behind the SEC. That's that's what it is. They know the threat Ripple is presents to them, and blockchain.
I don't think honestly, I don't think Ripple is a threat to the establishment. I honestly think it's an enhancement of the establishment.
I
Just
would, I agree with you, Steak.
Yeah, I agree with that.
and
I
the
think
thing is,
because
they know that, but there is a different power vacuum and processes that are going to change in the back office if you go from what they had for the past 100 years to a new system. So a lot of things that are in the process of fiat and how fiat is leveraged, the petrodollar, towards the rest of the world, all of that has to make sense in the digital blockchain. And everyone that's in the legacy system that holds some sort of form of power, and there's a lot of people on that table, they want to say on this. They want to make sure that their spot is still there at the end of the table by the time that they move to the new system. That's what's happening right now in the background. Everyone wants to secure their position. Because if you could just print with the Federal Reserve, you can print your money and suddenly the thing moves differently from an infrastructure point of view, then who is there to have control? Is it the data center? Do they suddenly, with cloud computing, have a say in this? Is it secure enough? Like, there's just so many stakeholders in this whole infrastructure.
yeah, I think you're right. And there, although I do think there are some players that who's are going to face like
Extinction.
sort of existential crisis, like disruption type of, I don't know what word you want to use, but
Yeah, and you want to have that smoothed out, right? You don't want more
yeah,
volatility than necessary unless that you can make a play on it, but you don't want panic.
no, you don't want panic. You can smooth out. I mean, there's even CEOs that specialize in sunsetting companies,
Yeah, like
right?
how you call that? They have a name for that.
Sunsetting. You
Yeah, we
take
have
them
a
into their, you sell the assets off.
yeah, we have a different name in
reduce
the
the
Netherlands.
staff.
It's called a death house construction, freely translated.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a way to do this, and you want to do it smoothly, right? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sorry to be maybe morbid, but think about a human life. Like,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
one thing to go out with hospice, right? It's
Right.
another thing if you just get like murdered.
Yeah, it
Like,
gets messy. So
well,
the least disruption as possible.
yeah, I think it's more about smoothing it out over
And
time.
honestly, with this old boys club, I could say that it's probably also something like they want to do a good goodbye, like well done for your service, right? I mean, we get a Nobel Prize for the guy that fucked up the entire housing market with his economics in mortgages, Bernanke, right?
Oh no, I think Bernanke actually did a good job.
Well,
Yeah,
if
and
he
we can
if he didn't invent it,
agree.
if he didn't invent it, other people's would. But a good job.
I think he did. He did. Well, I can tell you, if what they did at that point in time had not happened, things would have been a lot uglier, and they're never going to get recognition for it. They're only going to get hatred. That's
Well,
fine.
maybe it would have been a good way if it got a lot uglier, because then the system would have gotten a much better reset from a genuine grassroots movement instead of the WEF manipulation that we have right now.
Um, there's an argument to be made there. Um,
I mean, for honestly, right? Like, I'm not a conspiracy nut, and I understand the people that are worried. I try to remain level-headed from both sides of the argument. But what the hell am I voting for if it's already decided on a global level?
dude, I was so, and I said the same thing when COVID happened. I remember I was sitting on the porch and I was talking with some people, and it just sort of hit me, and it was like, dude, the economics of this thing are going to be worse than the disease itself. I mean, not
Yeah.
that obviously dying is pretty bad, you know. So
Did you know?
let's
Did you know what I
let's
did
not
for a living during COVID? I helped
that.
entrepreneurs who went bankrupt to get a job.
Well, you're talking to somebody who did the exact same
Well,
thing. First
here's the
job
thing.
in 10 years.
Yeah, but the thing is, I spoke to all of them, many of them, from different fields and areas, on how it impacted them. I've seen all the case studies, all the data regarding to labor. Here's the three uh, branches that were hurt the most. It's culture, it's hospitality, and taxi drivers.
I guess you could probably, I don't know, sort of throw my business in the hospitality world because it's an event-based business, but
Right.
that
So
completely
those,
cut us out.
but those three branches in I don't know if that's the correct term, branches, but those three areas, um, they still haven't recovered, and they'll probably never recover.
Well, the town I live in is like a heavy tourist town, so I'd say a good portion of the people I know work in hospitality.
Do you know what happened in the Netherlands? We've got pretty solid infrastructure as opposed to other countries. So everyone started working from home, and we found out that we could run the entire country's economy from home.
Yeah, I was listening to a executive earlier. It was just an interview, uh, and they were talking about this, and I think it's a good thing. I think you know,
It is, but here's what
until-
happened. Here's what happens. I'm going to give you the details.
you gotta. What he was saying is that they're bringing. Now, granted, this is like a private equity firm, but and it's you want to have people together so they can collaborate because you need to share ideas and you know kind of like we
Sure.
do in here, but it's easy,
Hmm.
it's better face to face. And so they were looking at
Sure.
more like say you do like a 5 day work week, but like maybe only 2 or 3 days a week do you come in, and you know those would be days where you come in and you do like probably meeting after meeting after meeting.
Right.
But not all jobs are like that. Like, you know, like if you're serving tables or running plumbing, like you got to be there. Like you can't work from home.
No, that's the thing. And we in the Netherlands, at least, this is the data from the Netherlands. It's pretty important to understand that for the other people in the room. But we moved 5 to 6 years ahead in the future with digitalization, because suddenly, predominantly the boomers in the workspace, they had to install Zoom and MS Teams, and they had to do meetings digitally, and they usually didn't know how to do that, but now they were forced to learn it, and they learned it, and it happened, and everyone's doing that now. But all the cafes, all the bars, all the restaurants, they still haven't recovered because most people are still working from home or hybrid, home and office. So there is less people buying a sandwich for lunch. There's less people doing meetings in hotels, because why would you? We've all got MS Teams installed. So why would we hire a conference room if it isn't absolutely necessary? Why would we fly to some place and have a business meeting and take a taxi to go there? It's completely unnecessary. So, from a carbon footprint point of view, that's of course wonderful news. But for those businesses, they suddenly get out of business. So you get more Uber, and you get more real estate in city centers that are becoming available, because those bars and cafes and pubs and the bands that play in them, the culture that plays in those locations, in those events, they suddenly have to find a different job as well. And for an investor, it's wonderful to buy real estate in city centers. I mean, these are prime locations. They never come available, like ever. And suddenly all of them came available. and we're still at that point that that's gonna happen. So government started funding it because they didn't want to lose it. They didn't know where the economy was gonna go. But from the point that we have now with the economy going the way it is going, we're gonna see all of that happening, and real estate is going down as well. So the investors are just waiting to buy up prime real estate locations in city centers when the economy is really going to go down, because many of those, especially in hospitality, will all go bankrupt. They won't be able to, people won't have money to spend on luxury items. They won't be eating in a restaurant, they'll be cooking at home. That's what we're going to see. It's going to be brutal. Like, they don't have any fat on their bones. They don't have any liquidity to go through another tough time. It's shit, to be very honest. That whole vibe is gone. But we still have a lot of fucking tourists everywhere.
Oh,
So it's
we don't have a shortage of tourists, that's for sure. I mean, you just drive down the road, look at the hotel parking lots; they're all full. I mean, you don't
yeah,
have to be a rocket scientist. Um,
yeah,
they're all full.
yeah.
It's. I do think it's gonna see. hmm, Yeah. Well, I don't want to just repeat what you said, but yeah, basically, like the.
It's going to be the nail in the coffin, this recession, for those businesses.
There. Well, and there's also the interest rates. We were talking about this yesterday. The
Oh
interest.
yeah, I missed that. I wasn't in this space, but were you talking about the interest rates rising again?
Well, there's a guy wrote a book, or I forget which economist it was, but he calls them zombie companies. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
what happens is they're profitable right now. Okay, so
yeah. I
because
I, I know that argument. 25% of the economy is a zombie company.
yeah, well, the thing is, this is why I don't like looking in the rearview mirror to make decisions about going forward. Um, like you can look at these companies' accounting statements and they're profitable, but going
Yeah,
forward, when they have to roll
exactly,
the debt and the interest rates go up, and if they don't have pricing power, like they can't raise their prices, then
exactly.
they're going to be out of business, because when they have to refinance at, instead of 3%, say
I
7,
agree. Percent
then
or eight.
now they're negative cash flow. Good night.
I the thing is, Karma, what I enjoy when I speak in spaces with you guys here, that I can talk about these topics and people here genuinely generally understand it. But if I go to the Dutch spaces, which I've been doing, and talk to like the common folk that talk about politics and stuff like that, they're not in finance or in crypto or whatever. Maybe some of them are, but it's pretty rare. And even those that are, they don't understand this aspect. They don't get this. They don't understand the mechanics that are happening right now. That's your common folk. They don't see this. It
I
doesn't
think
get
it's
explained.
important because, I mean, it, this is the
It's not
time.
in the news. It's not in journals. Journalists aren't reporting on this.
Well, people don't want to read about it. You got numbers and stuff. It's
Oh,
icky,
they do.
right?
Like
Like,
when I talk about finance and economy, the entire space is silent. And I'm talking about extreme right populists, extreme left populists. They're completely silent and want to hear how the system is fucking them in the ass, because they understand that they're completely segregated about all sorts of societal problems, but no one ever talks about finance. It's the one topic that doesn't get discussed.
oh, I've said this several times. Money is the biggest taboo, which is a terrible,
Exactly.
terrible, terrible thing, in my opinion.
Exactly.
People say that
Thank fuck you get it.
politics and sex and religion are taboo, but people will talk about all of those. You bring up money,
Everyone's silent.
crickets. Yeah, they're gone. They'll
Here's
get
the
up and
funny thing. Here's the funny thing that I noticed as well. is that people actually want to steer the conversation away from it, even though they understand that they're going to be that's the primal reason that they're being fucked, and they understand it, but they still don't want to talk about it. It makes them so uncomfortable. The truth makes them so uncomfortable that they don't want to hear it. They
Well,
just shut off.
a big part of my motivation, anyway, assume Death shares the same motivation, is to with Ledger Scale is to like bring this stuff up and talk about it. I think we need more financial education. It's not just all about crypto. You know,
Yeah,
sometimes we talk
I
about
agree.
nothing to do with crypto.
Here's how what I boiled down to. You told me that story once that you were raised part by your grandfather in from a business point of view, right? Learning how
Yeah,
to do math,
everybody
learning how to
ran their
count.
own business.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a common thing between the two of us because my father really taught me how to do math and how to think logically, how to be just the whole beta thought process. And I'm doing the same thing with my kid, but these people aren't teaching their kids to do math, like the basic stuff, like
Well,
do
I
the
wasn't allowed
tables, do
calculator.
percentages, to do percentages with your kids, do calculus with your kids, um, play chess with them. I mean, it's c- normal. Generally,
Yeah, I
people don't
wasn't
do that.
allowed to have a calculator. If I had, well, he didn't even have a he wouldn't have a calculator in the office.
No,
You just do it in
same
pen.
here. I'm doing it with my 2-year-old. He's now 5. I started with math, and we've never used anything apart from our brains and words. We don't write down shit. We don't write down. You memorize. Like you just fucking memorize. That's it.
That's good. I mean, I think the trouble is, and it's not really. I hear what you're saying
I'll,
because
I'll
like
tell you.
other people.
I'll make it even more ridiculous for you. When my kid was 1.5, I used to sing him to sleep. We're talking about like a baby, right? I used to sing him to sleep, and he was developing language at that time. And I was singing to him, and the last sang about 5 songs every night. And the last song I would sing was counting, and he would memorize the sounds, and I could look at his face when he got tired. I made it to 78 with a baby, memorizing 78 words in one go.
Well, that's cool. The the
That's fucking amazing, man. At 78, he was like, "Yeah, I'm tired."
the the thing is, it's not necessarily. I don't. I have a hard time like blaming the parents for not teaching their children
No,
financial.
I don't want to blame. I'm just stating facts. It's just
I'm not saying you're blaming, but like a lot of times the parents don't know,
no, I
right? Like
agree,
they
but
were never
that's
taught.
I'm just saying that when you do those educational spaces, or if you want to do those educational spaces, I personally think that this thing that I'm talking about right now is the thing you need to be teaching people. This is it.
What?
Like the story with you and your grandfather. That's it. Nothing else. That's the thing you need to be talking about.
Oh,
Like
well, that's just
this
like fun.
generation is lost. This generation is lost. They're not gonna learn. Their brains are not gonna grow anymore to become
Actually,
better at it.
this is one of the fun, and I think sometimes like when you're hunting or something, like an opportunity presents itself. Um, I think crypto is like that in a sense because all of a sudden people are interested in finance. Like crypto has made like talking
And
about
math,
money
and
cool.
math, and math. Talking
And
about talking about cryptography, like from a mathematical point of view.
yeah,
Like
all of a sudden it's cool now. Like,
or IT or quantum computing, AI. All that shit is like, yeah, we're gonna do this.
but that rewind a few years back, and if I said, "Hey, I'm going to start an online discussion and we're going to talk about accounting systems. Nobody
Hey,
would show up.
hey,
Like,
Karma. Hey,
you know,
Karma. Hey, Karma. I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial type of guy, but here I am.
I know, like it's all of a sudden. So I think it's kind of a strike while the iron's hot. Like if you can get people engaged and a lot of these developers that they're if they're developing financial applications, they're going to have some understanding of like how the
Yeah,
different financial are all.
because the entire infrastructure is so big, you're going to need so many people
Oh
that
yeah.
we're gonna have to be educating them. They're just not there. Like too few percentages of STEM. We need so many more STEM people in our society. Our entire society has to move to STEM. It's 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 ridiculous. So if
Well,
you want to do something noble and awesome,
what's that?
well, I think if you want to do something noble and awesome for the next generations, it's actually teaching them math at a higher level, at a younger age. And I'm looking at like what I just said, babies, toddlers, young children. Teach them fucking math. And then you get
Yeah.
to the problem that, and I don't want to generalize here, but it's just a straight fact. Many women usually are teaching the younger children because men generally are less interested. So from age 0 to 6, usually if you bring your kid to a daycare or they are going to school, the chances are very high, like in the 95% percentage range, that the teacher will be a woman because men are not interested in teaching young children until they're older because they don't want to teach the rudimentary stuff that you do as a human that you have to go through. They actually want to tell them things about how the world works. That's what men want when they raise their kid. And it's something that I think men have to change. We don't live in a hunter and gatherer society anymore.
I mean, yeah, it's important. And the other thing I'll add to that, although it's kind of math, but here's the thing: like you can just through I don't know how we're talking about kids stuff, but anyway,
No, you were talking about
the
education, trying to
like
do
even
that
with
with ledger
allowance,
scale. You were talking
even
about
with
education.
yeah, actually, I need to get in touch with my cousin because she's doing childhood financial education now.
That's
I
brilliant,
was
man. Get her
abroad.
into this. Get
Yeah, I
her
was
into this.
abroad.
That's a
Um,
great idea.
but the like even just like with an allowance, like this is where you can teach the math, right? But you attach it to this is at least for me anyway. Like when I was doing like some math, like calculus level stuff, it was like, dude, this is BS. I don't,
Suddenly the
I
volume
didn't,
is very. Oh yeah, that's better.
I
Sorry,
don't
this
care.
is BS.
Yeah, I got a call. Sorry, I didn't. I'll talk to him later.
How dare you?
And but once you attached the math to like money in like the bond market and like the stock market and the derivatives, and it's like, okay, now this is making sense. Like it's attached to a real thing. So even with just like an
And
allowance, hey,
exactly. And then you get the scenario that people, which they cannot do right now, that they can actually vote with their wallet. Right now, people think that they vote with their wallet, but they can just print money, so they don't vote with their wallet. But in the system that we're going to get afterwards, you actually vote with your wallet. So you might as well understand how the system works. Does that make sense?
yeah. Um, I just sorry, someone just came over. Um, the if you, I feel like if you can attach it to something real, then it helps the kid's mind absorb the math concepts.
Oh, I did that with music. I sang the math. That worked wonders. Or did you meant something else? Are you there, Karma? Or am I rugged?
He might be rugging. You're coming in fine, Stig.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I thought I had connection issues.
I absolutely love the whole teaching math with music. I think it's really great. It connects the synapses, and
Yeah.
it's a wonderful technique.
Yeah, it works great, and they can do it with dance as well, right? So they don't have to sit still, but do it physically, so that they're doing math while they're moving. So it's actually incorporated with their synapses for their motor skills as well. Because usually people study math when they sit still. You have to be flexible. Math can be pretty flexible.
Well, I know when I was in school, my teacher actually would have us have like essential oils like peppermint nearby, because that would actually integrate another one of your senses in, and you could bring the whatever smell that you liked, because it would actually help trigger the memory while you were learning it too. So
Cool.
yeah,
That's
super fun.
Yeah, sounds fucking awesome. Can I say, Shellfish, how great it is to hear you speak more in these spaces over the last 4 to 5 months? That has changed tremendously.
Well, thank you, Steve.
You really
I
found your
appreciate
voice.
it.
It's amazing. It's amazing to listen to.
Okay, enough. You're making me blush.
No, thank you. You're doing awesome. Really, the improvement is massive, like fucking massive. So yeah, it's wonderful. I hope it pays dividends for you in your private life as well.
Aw, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go back down now. Kind of embarrassed.
Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just, yeah, I think it's worthy of a compliment at least. But it gets noticed, and not just by me, I guess. But yeah, I'll shut up about that if karma comes back.
All right.
Otherwise, it's just
Yeah.
me in this space.
Yeah. I'm kind of, I don't know what to say right now. I'm kind of.
Yeah, sure.
You caught me off guard. Thank you
All
for the
right.
compliment.
Share the love, right? So yeah, am I the only one here? And if I am, someone else please help me.
No, I don't. I think you're here with us, but
What's up, guys?
Hey, thank you. Okay.
No, I'm just looking at an article right now.
I'll be right back.
Cool. All right. Well, if anyone else wants to fill up Karma's space, then we can actually have a conversation. Otherwise, I'm just gonna wing it and monologue it until he gets back, like a filibuster.
Can you sing some Sinatra?
No, I actually can't. But do you have a song in mind?
No, but
is
it
there
might help us learn.
are there any questions anybody has in the audience regarding anything about the Internet of Value, blockchain, NFTs, and anything in particular they have that they'd like to bring up? Please feel free to hit the request to come up. I'd like to selfish. We were having a conversation with AI about AI this morning. I'd like to go back onto that topic.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
always one
probably
of my
better
things.
than it's probably better than me singing the numbers.
Is there any area of the AI that you wanted to hit on, Jeff?
Um, Nothing in particular. No. If there's something that you wanted to from the conversation earlier, you could start it up.
Yeah. So, at what point in time is AI right now in development? Like, what is it capable of? Do you have any knowledge of that?
What it's
I
capable
think
of
I
and
think
what
it's disputed right now.
what it's capable of and what it's doing are two different things. Um, right?
Yeah.
Because
Like, at what level of research is the tech with? Where is it at right now? Do you know that?
I guess it depends on your scale of what you're considering. Um, Although I do think we're very close to AGI in the next 5 years, 5 to 8 years, we'll be able to grasp that form of technology. I think the most significant thing so far right now though is that all of the machine learning algorithms and the more advanced GPT-3 um, that exist are still siloed. They're very small, non-interconnected networks sharing data flows with each other, and so as that progresses, the information is able to be accessed and shared more easily and rapidly. I think AI will just progress quicker and quicker.
So what is GPI 3? I hope I pronounce it correctly.
It's just a protocol. It's just a machine learning algorithm. What they're saying is, some people claim it's AGI. I don't think it's personally AGI, but it's very close to it. What it's able to do.
It's pretty scary. Like the levels of artificial intelligence, we're going beyond facial recognition. It's like biometrics, and we're talking the way you walk. Everyone has like a cadence to them, right? The way it goes beyond just facial biometric facial data points. There's more that's going to tie into it, and it's going to be driven by the AI. And I feel like once the AI is capable, it's going to be like a snowball effect. It's just going to keep on learning and compiling. I think it's actually kind of scary, in my opinion.
Well, it only learns what it's given, right? What we give it, and it's only able to access the information that we make it readily available for it to access, and so it can use it to.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Death is the people that
We're
are
going to be pushing that boundary continuously, right?
the people. Like, look at like Elon Musk just acquired Twitter, right? But the thing is that people that are in this sector, they feel that they're benevolent. So they're gonna make parameters for the technology that they deem suitable. So I mean, I'm not against people having prosthetic legs because it's a machine merger with man, right? Like it's not all bad. It depends on what it's used for and how it's like programmed per se. Like brain chips can be a good thing, but if the person that's programming it has ill intentions, that's where it draws the line. Like, because that's what I'm saying. The people that in Silicon Valley, they don't seem to have too much of a humanitarian thought process, in my opinion.
Well, it's not. It's not just
Google in their terms and conditions 3 years ago changed a thing that made a lot of people in Google, employees, leave the company en masse. And the thing they changed is that there was a sentence in the user agreement from Google that said, Google shall do no evil. And they erased that out of their user agreement. Let that sink in.
So there's a company,
It's a personal
Cosm.
opinion.
Yeah, there's a company, Cosm, that said it's more likely a tool, and that as we are slowly integrating in with it, and they're learning our language, our cadence, all of these different things, they're also adding in philosophy, just like humans. Like the more positive stuff you put into it, the more positive you get out of it. So I choose to be the positive that I want to see in the world, and I hope that instead of coming from it from a fear base, that you start looking towards like integrating it as a positive tool,
Shellfish,
because
here's the thing though.
it is a tool
Here's
when
the
it comes
thing
down
though.
to it.
From a financial point of view, we know that fear is the emotion that sells the most.
Well, I like to harp back on the people like, so it's not like biometrics it not necessarily is inherently a bad thing. Like it could be a good thing, but it just depends on who's behind it, who's in charge of the coding. And I feel like if people had the sense of they can control it, they would want to adapt it with their body. And I totally agree with that. But
So
then again,
sauce.
here comes real quick. Here comes the thing where they can choose, like they can define what's criminal, what's what's bad, how you can use it per se. Like, so it's still kind of speculative because we don't really have like a good example of like people with brain chips. We kind of just see the blueprints of it. So in my opinion, I think it's easy to say that I think it's easy to say like, oh, you can use it for good, but um, I
So
just think it's a slippery slope.
Sauce, when you're going onto like Nvidia's site and you know that they're running demos and simulations like thousands and thousands at a time, way more than what we're able to accomplish in that amount of time. So they're trying to find the best outcome. Um, why would it why would it all of a sudden alter and go towards the negative and like evil aspect and like kill all the humans when it's literally being trained to find the safest BMW that's out there, or the drones that are trying to find the humans that are stuck under debris after a earthquake or a tidal wave.
Because
They're
it's the people in power. Like right now, they use metadata to figure out who they're going to bomb in third world countries. Once you pass a certain threshold of communications and your metadata can since they can prove it, they'll bomb you. And like this is the thing with the people in charge. Like I get that it can be good, and I get it's not all doom and gloom, but it's the people who are in charge of making these policies and protocols, like the government with the SEC lawsuit, right? It's been going on for a long time, and they're supposed to have our best interests. Like, I mean, we can say like, oh, it'll be for good, like a prosthetic arm or a prosthetic leg, like. Yeah, those are good. Those are useful. Those help humans, live their life and be happy, right? I think it's a little different though when we start incorporating, brain chips and things like that. I mean, hey, if I can get a brain chip that makes me like never lose concentration, I'm on top of it. It's like always drinking coffee, but it's like no side effects. You can sleep. Like I would maybe consider it. It sounds pretty cool, but at the same time, we may be stuck getting upgrades and all these things, and I just like the one story I mentioned about the prosthetic eye from Argis, I think the company name was called, and they went out of business. And whoever had their biometric eye is basically sent down a river. It's yeah, that's all. I think it's a slippery
If if
slope.
if I may, and here's what it boils down to for me at least, to give that point some more, to make it a little bit more solid and tangible. Um, Imagine being among the first people that get a brain chip, and that technology will not be matured the first time that happens. The absolute complications that it can give are staggering.
what if those brain chips were the ones that were from 2013, and the technology that we're being exposed to now is way
Yeah,
more advanced?
yeah. This has been 2 decades.
Well, well, think about it. Think about this comparison, Steak. Like I know someone who's only alive today because they took participation in a one of these cancer drug trials, and it worked. Um, that's the same risk. Like, so you get somebody that's in a situation, and they can maybe test out one of these. I would just say like neurological enhancement type of devices, whether it's like because they're paralyzed or some other thing. Um, what are you gonna? You can't, like back to my finance and relativity thing. If you're already paralyzed, what more do you got? What are you gonna do? Like get more paralyzed?
Well,
Like if it
I
works, it
just
works.
think I
If it
just think
doesn't,
we should I just think we should respect the sacrifice a lot more.
So it has been my experience in the last 2 years or so in this space. I came in here like full on like conspiracy theory, scared that like everything was out to get me, stockpiling food, thinking like, holy crap, because I would watch all those Walking Dead shows and like crazy shit, right? Sorry, I cursed. I know we're in IOE. But like as I've been in here and I've exposed my self to, didn't mean to word it like that, to Twitter.
Don't Don't be so indecent. Don't be so
Ah,
indecent.
let me reword that. I have experienced the different Twitter spaces and uh, chosen better people to be around and expanded my knowledge and just not the stuff that I was fed on TV and the little cherry picked things that the news was giving me. The more I educated myself, the more I realized that man, these freaking people that are out there are really, really smart, and we have to give them a chance to do what they've dedicated their whole life to. Like, I don't know about you, but the people that sat next to me in school, like, they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to go to school to learn biology or science or tech because they wanted to make the world a better place. Like, I mean, how many
But
people
the
are actually
people,
out
like the
there?
World Economic Forum, like at WEF, like they want to make the world better for their own interests, their own personal interests.
How do you know
And when we
that?
start
I don't think
incorporating, because
so.
they say it
What is
themselves,
their own
they
interest?
literally say it themselves, dude. They
What's their
literally
what's their
they
own
want to
interest?
they want to have people. They listen to Carl Schwab, how he talks.
No, no, no,
We're
not
not.
just not just
Yep.
not just Swap. The
It's like
Israeli
it's
guy, the professor
there's
that's
way yeah
next to
there's
him,
way more
that
people out
wrote the
there. Like
book, that
they
he
say
actually
these things themselves.
Yeah, but
Sauce.
in all
He
this,
actually
uh,
said, I'm going to quote it. He actually said, the Israeli professor next to Klaus Schwab that helped him write the book of the Great Reset. He's done many interviews. He actually said that 6 of the 7 billion people that we have on this planet are completely irrelevant and unnecessary for the progress of our species because all they do is just consume.
right? But that being said, do you understand? You know, you said they're all out for themselves, but everything they ever talk about is the progression of the species. Literally, like it's like their whole thing is about progressing the species
But
technologically.
it's in a nuanced way that benefits them. Like climate change is bogus. They want to destroy the
Climate.
farming and
I don't
irrigation.
think that I don't think that they're
They do.
genetically superior. I don't think that
So
they're
but
genetically
so let me
superior.
but they're not genetically superior. But what they're going to do is they're going to make it a world so the technology is more utilized by them, by the upper class. And if you listen to them talk, they
That's
talk about these things
that's
about how
that's a
destroying
personal thought.
farming.
That's an opinion, though. They never came out and they said
I, I have
we're
a
gonna make the
question.
world better for.
So they're talking about taking away farming, irrigation. They're talking about CBDC,
Transhumanism.
and
How,
they're talking about
how about
transhumanism as
this?
well,
How
right?
about this,
So
guys?
it
Like,
doesn't.
who are they to determine who
I mean,
lives
it
and who
might be
dies and
scary
who's
for you
worth it and
guys. I
who's
get
not?
it.
Who are they to do that? Who are they to
Yeah,
do
Exactly.
how
this?
do you
Oh,
how do you
hey,
advance?
hey
Who
guys,
dies?
one
Who's
at a time,
inferior
one at
and
a
who's
time, guys,
superior?
Yeah.
one at a time.
All right, we're gonna do this. If you do want to speak, just raise your hand and we'll go in order and we'll let people finish their top what they're gonna say and then we'll speak afterwards. So one at a time. Delta, thank you for raising your hand.
Okay, so if the World Economic Forum is all for the advancement and the progression of the species, how do you progress the species when the rhetoric you spew involves killing or making obsolete 6 of the 7 billion people on the planet? Where is the progression in that?
Well, I'm not and for a I'm not defending anybody, right? But they never said nobody ever said came out and said that they're out to kill 6% of the 6 billion people on the planet. They just said that they're an nuisance in the progression of the species and in a sense of consumerism. Would you disagree? Are six
Um,
billion people
I
on the planet?
believe I
I
believe that
would
to
disagree. I would disagree because look at the U.S. economy, and China is intentionally trying to transfer to a
No,
consumer-based economy.
But isn't it the 6 of the 7 billion people that are actually doing the work?
no. So this is
now
Work, yes, but they're also consuming. Like they're also the source of demand. It's supply and demand.
Meta has his hand.
And
Let's
you
let
cannot have gross domestic product that is produced without
Uh,
people to consume it. And that being said, a lot of the whole thing is not in killing people, in other words, killing off 6 out of 7 billion people, but keeping them entertained so they might as well become completely dead. Because if you're not doing anything to contribute to society, you're sitting in your house on your VR headset and you're not doing anything, you might as well be dead. And
no
also, the
opinion,
irrelevant
but Meta
making
him.
6 billion people out to be irrelevant and saying that they're a nuisance and saying that they do nothing for society. That sounds a lot like the rhetoric of somebody else who we dealt with in history, and I won't say any names.
Well, there is the I think it's the 80-20 rule, or maybe it's 90-10.
Yeah, Metis had his hand up. Let's let him speak.
Yeah, it sounds like the Fourth Reich. Okay, there was a Third Reich. It sounds like it's a new that they never went away, like Project Paperclip. They want to go ahead and continue with eugenics and test people with the DNA, whether they're worth it or not. And that's what's happening. And it's like a psychopaths run by psychopaths, man. They think they're superior.
Honestly, though, you really just look at history, and there's literally no difference from today than it was 2,000 years ago. The only difference is the technology and the apparel at the time, right? The same ideals and concepts are still existing today. And this is where it comes to where you would say, are they in a nuisance? Well, they are and aren't, right? Because you could say that the consumerism, the whole globalization, the progression of our species continues because of the ability to have the consumers, right? But at the same time, you could look around as a societal, even a town thing, right? And look and see how many people are willing to take their shirts off their back to help somebody, and vice versa, in just the progression of the species instead of for themselves. I almost guarantee that it's an unfortunate, right? But over 80 something, over 86% of people, if they were told from an authoritative figure to kill you or to shoot you in the head, right? They would do so because of the way that the brain's concept is and the way that we look upon authoritative figures, right? And so, you know, what you're stating is more of a societal or an idealistic issue from our species rather than just a single party just saying that that's what they're out to do, right?
Right.
Because
So we're saying that power corrupts.
well, yeah, it can.
So wouldn't you say that those billionaires in play have the most power and are the most corrupt? So who are they to make the right decision?
Well, what if they're on a governance council that
Well,
has to hold each other accountable?
Well, no, the biggest thing in the end of the day, though, is that they don't make any decision, right? Because they can say whatever they want, but unless the 6 billion people consume and implement it, it doesn't happen. Now, if they say something and it happens and it's implemented, well, there's nobody else's fault but the society at the time, right? Because everybody is part of the society. If everybody revolts, that's a revolution. It doesn't happen. And so you know that's there's no single entity or person to ever blame for an entire species of idealistic society that exists. I think it's good that we don't singularly like how we go like the WEF and like we point them out as like we almost like to you like what's the word, symbolize them in your mind as some sort of like entity out to get you, and it does nothing but I feel like put a crutch on you, right? Because you're not able to even progress to all of the other things that you might have been able to think about and help in the future, because you're stuck on this thought of, oh my gosh, I don't want to be part of this because this is going to be my downfall or my species downfall. What is the exact opposite? I think this is how we get to the enlightenment of our species, and we get to the next stage where we don't have the problems that consist in our society today.
Can I talk on the food topic?
I'd love it. Yeah, thank you, Black. Thank you for coming up too.
So I I'm reading this book called "The Future is Faster Than You Think." So if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to do so. It's very informative. Um, but in the book, he talks about vertical farming. He talks about removing GMOs. He talks about a quarter of the world's land mass is currently used for farming, and 30% of the grain that is produced is used to farm animals with. And they've developed the ability to grow meat in a lab from stem cells from these animals. So there's no animals harmed. We can remove pesticides and all these chemicals that are being sprayed on our food, utilizing the vertical farms, which consume far less land, resources, water. All of these things are becoming more efficient. And it's going to be a lot of change that happens over the next decade. And anytime there is change, people don't like change, even though it's the most inevitable thing that's going to exist throughout your entire life. And so a lot of time people want a scapegoat, or they want to pin it on somebody like it's bad. Um, I said this in the space last night, and Death Ranger was there. I don't know. I am not privy to all of the knowledge that these people have. And so it's difficult for me to say that they are evil. To your point, they have made certain comments in the World Economic Forum and other public forums that would indicate that they do things in their own best interest. And if you were in that situation, again, point was made, power corrupts. And you have that influence, and you have the ability to make those decisions or help make those decisions, then you're going to probably put your family first and yourself first. Because if you can't help yourself, then you can't help anybody else. And does that mean that you need to eradicate the rest of the people on the planet? I don't think so. In this book, they also talk about, because of the sustainable way that they're going to move forward with the resources, we actually have a fighting chance to progress to 9 billion people on the planet. The way that we currently do things does not scale. It's like Bitcoin or Ethereum. Like, it's very inefficient. The supply chain and the way things exist now, we've seen these problems manifest over the last 2 years, and they've been amplified by the pandemic and other things that have gone on. So if we can implement 3D printing, if we can implement all of these technologies that they're talking about and are working on, then I think we end up with a brighter tomorrow, and it will be different. It's not going to be the same as it is now, but I don't think we remove all of the consumers. Again, they have to consume in order for there to be demand. So I am of the belief that the Great Reset and Asara Jasara that everybody talks about are the same thing. And it's just about what light they're presented in. Like, if you want to pitch it this way, where everybody's taxes are removed and they lose all their debts, and we bring in UBI and there's a renaissance period, or you can pitch it as they have complete control over you, and they can see all your purchases. Both of those things are going to be true. And it's just what lens you look at it through. So,
well, I think the zero knowledge proof can help protect your privacy when a CBDC type of situation.
Well, that's fantastic. I hope that that's the case, and that makes sense. And I think David Schwartz and everybody at Ripple and the people at Hedera, like, I don't know who the nice lady was that made the point about the council, but they've done that, right? Like, they have 39 members that are going to sit on this board that is basically going to govern the network that is going to be the base layer for Web3 and all the dApps. So I think they've set up a great system I can't come up with anything better. I would love to hear anybody else's
Can you tell
solution.
me, can you give me a source on where I could read up on those 39 companies and that council? Where can I read more on that?
Company council.
Just Google Hedera's council.
Yeah, you'll find all.
They've filled 32 seats.
Hey,
and
Steak, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
And we had two other people come up, Ghost and then Saucy. Man, you guys have both had your hands up, so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I heard what you said, man, and I'm definitely on your point. Good points also by the block biz there. I think there's a lot being made with regards to comments like "you will own nothing and be happy." When people hear it, when we're in our paradigm and we enjoy our cars and buying our cars and enjoying our toys, to hear something like that is such a negative connotation that people have sort of run away with it, right? Like, that's evil. That's 100% evil. We're sure it's 100% evil. Look, they want to take everything from us. They want to control everything. Well, that could very well be the case, but maybe not, man. I think when you start to think about it, as we start to change the society, you have to sort of eliminate these paradigms. There's a study a couple of years ago with Stanford, right, where kids were allowed to draw, right? So these kids enjoyed their drawing, and they really truly love doing it, right? So they incentivize these kids as a test to provide a reward, right, for the drawing. I think it was like gold stars or something like that. What they found in time, because of the incentivization structure, to us we're thinking, oh, that's great, they're incentivizing them to do it. But what they found in the study is with time, eventually these kids started hating drawing or didn't like it as much, right? And the theory is when you start to put incentives in that environment, it sort of changes the dynamic and how you enjoy that intrinsic enjoyment of actually just drawing without that reward. So the reason why I bring this up is I think as a society we start to have to think about, are these things that are within our lives, are these material things, work hard enough, you buy a big house, you buy a big car, are these sort of old fashioned way in thinking and how we transgress as a species, right? So when I start to think about these comments like the WEF, these guys are actually quite smart and very methodical in that sort of how do we evolve as a species sort of question and answer perspective, right? So we have to look at it from an open mind as far as a paradigm. Me personally, I prepare for it as in both sides, right? Is this are the technologies that are being provided today, whether we move into this digitized world, digitized money, going to be bad for me or good for me and good for the society in general? It's very early to tell, but we prepare for it as if there's a potential for a dystopian society and a non-dystopian society that emerges out of this. Of course, human nature and its track record has sort of given this notion that we end up being more towards this dystopian society. But I'm somewhat hopeful that with time and with the right circumstances and things that happen and evolve with the situation, that we don't lean towards that, right? So at this point, I don't know. Nobody knows what happens with this stuff. Yes, it could be very dangerous for our civil liberties and all that good stuff that sort of we've intrinsically valued over time. But I also try to open my mindset to say, how do we evolve to an expansive population and be able to progress at least from a human perspective? Because if we are in this sort of situation where we're consuming of animals and the earth and minerals and commodities, it's not sustainable. Almost as if we're tempting the gods to drop down a meteor and just do a reset on the entire population. So I think it's important to think of it in that sense and not just vilify it as bad, because we don't know.
Well, I don't think it's this. I get. I don't know. The people that are there's some folks out there that are like so anti-government, like they think the government's like trying to kill them or something. Like literally, some of them. And it's like, no, dude. We all agreed to live under this government, abide by these rules, because everything works better when we cooperate. And the government is just a way that laws are a way that we agree to cooperate. Like you can't steal.
100%. We have Saucy's had his hand up, man. Uh, please go ahead and speak now, and then Shellfish after you.
Hey, cool. Yeah. Thanks for a chance to comment. Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick, my 2 cents on that whole uh, World Economic Forum, depopulation conspiracy thing, where that guy said 6 billion people on Earth are irrelevant. I don't really buy that, because at the end of the day, bodies are a resource. And I think like a good example of that is the war in Russia and Ukraine right now. I mean, ask them, right? Like if they wish they could have more bodies, more like military aged male men, like ages 18 to like 40 or whatever. I mean, China has 2 billion people to draw on if they ever go to war. So like yeah, I feel like humans are a resource. So I don't know. That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. So it's like these governments like conspiring to like kill off their entire populations. I don't know. It just doesn't really make sense to me. So that's that's all. That was my 2 cents on that.
I just gotta say it's called human resources.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was it. Thanks.
Yeah, I completely agree though. I completely agree. The world, the globalization, it doesn't exist. It doesn't occur without having the consumer base there to consume it for. And Shellfish, go ahead, please. Thank you.
So I think I've brought this up in other chats. I'm in Florida. I go to Disney. I've been going my entire life. I bring my kids there now. And one of the big things in Disney, there is Epcot, and they have the World Expo Center. And for as long as I can remember, they have been investing and researching the sustainable futures, and literally trying to teach people as they come in there to this theme park, as well as like just managing time, managing lines, energy efficiency, like all these amazing things. And people pay their entire extra paycheck and then some to go to literally the happiest place on earth. That is like what people's goal is. That's what they say in the Super Bowl. Like, where are you going? I'm going to Disney World, right? So I don't know if you have ever looked into it, but Walt Disney's kids are actually involved in the World Economic Forum, which is probably where some of the whole idea of you will own nothing and be happy, because we waste so much stuff, and we're trying to move into more of a metaverse where we're consuming less products, like physically, but we'll still have outfits to like change our avatars into, and go on these vacations and not destroy the planet that we have limited resources in. So, you know what? Like, as we progress down this horrible path right now where we're going into recessions and depressions and they're trying to pull us out of it, and everybody is so sad all the time and traumatized by COVID. I don't know about you, but like, happy doesn't sound so bad to me anymore. Like, I'm okay with not owning so much shit and being happy. Like, what's wrong with happy? Like, why is that a bad sales pitch?
Love it. And Karma, you got your hand up, so I guess you go, and then we got Elephant. You raised your hand, man, and then ML, please.
Well, I think it comes down to an economics thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to take it there. Because you look at like this is the whole peer-to-peer. We talk about the AMM and the crowd-funded liquidity. You've got Airbnb, you've got TaskRabbit, you've got all these different peer-to-peer business models. And essentially what they're doing is adjusting the cost curve from a capital expenditure to a marginal expenditure. So you might not own the car, right? But you still get access to the transportation. Like, what are you going to do with the car, unless you just want to like go out there and wash it or something? But like, what were you going to do with the car other than use it for transportation? So, you still get access to the functionality set that what are you going to do with an Airbnb? You're going to sleep there. You're going to go and stay somewhere. And I don't think that this criticism of you're going to own nothing and be happy. I know there's that gets a lot of criticism, but somebody's still going to own everything, right? And not one person, but somebody. That doesn't mean you can't own anything,
Or
right?
everybody owns everything. Then you own nothing, and everybody owns everything at the same time.
Well, yeah, but you can
We
own
got
like
a
I
lot
like
of
that.
people though, man, with the hands up. So I just want to the Elephant Man. You got your hand up. ML, Lee John, the Block, and then Steak Man. Thank you guys for being so kind and raising your hand.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I just have a problem with the powers that be always controlling the narrative, and then what they do is they control the narrative and they repeat it and and then it becomes part of our narrative when and it doesn't allow for free thinkers, and free thinking becomes obsolete, and it's everything. It forms this, uh, what's good for the state type attitude. So I think it's dangerous in a sense that that it limits free thinking. Like where's Socrates when you need him? I land right there.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I'll make a comment on it in a little bit. If you want to go, I was ML, Lee John, the block, and then Steak. Go ahead, ML man. Thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks, guys. No, just a quick thought. You can't look at the adoption of technology in a vacuum. Um, you're talking about people adopting technology that's life changing. AI, even blockchain, it has tremendous impact on their life. You can't look at that in a vacuum. They have to adopt it voluntarily. And the narrative that they're using is almost one that forces people. We're going to force you, and that hasn't worked in human history. So they've got to change that, and it's got to be something that people voluntarily adopt, not through coercion. Um, you know, that's really all I wanted to say. These what you're talking about, what I've been learning by listening to you guys is tremendous change for human beings. But it's got to be voluntary. That's all I'm trying to say. There's no government that's going to force it. No World Economic Forum. It just isn't going to happen because you're seeing a ton of pushback in a lot of different areas with some of the changes this current administration is trying to do, and they're not doing a very good job of trying to impose what they're thinking on everybody because it doesn't benefit a lot of people. So just from an adoption perspective, you can't coerce people to use this stuff. That's all I'm saying.
I couldn't agree more. If it happens, it's going to be a societal and a species agreement. It has to be everybody has to be on the same level. I couldn't agree more. I lost my track of where I was. Lee John, I think it was you, and then the block, and then Steak.
Yeah, I was the "oh nothing, be happy" connotation, or I guess statement makes a lot of sense if you look at the way that buying houses is right now. If you want to buy a house, or I mean, if you wanted to buy a house during COVID, there was an advantage to owning a home. The advantage of owning a home is becoming less and less, like a superior thing. You're now looking at renting as being a cheaper option. So if the incentive to buy houses is not great enough for people that are like a regular, nuclear family, then that's where you're going to move from the I don't want to own something that's going to make me happy. So, the more that we, move into that territory, that's when you're going to see less ownership of things. But it's not going to be a good thing. It cannot be a good thing because you can't equate ownership on something because you own the rights to it. Even like think about business owners. A lot of what we're taught is to go work for somebody. But if you own your own business, you have a lot more freedom. You have a higher ceiling. You have more that you could work with to make more money and do certain things, and you're not relying on somebody. So the reliance is what scares me because once everybody or once a mass group relies, then you can manipulate that group because they're relying on you. And that worries me.
You're still relying on your customers because if they dry up, so do you.
Yes. But is the market going to dry up? Like, is homeownership going to be something that people no longer want to do? I think it might dry up, but will the prices go down? That's the thing that doesn't make that's I guess a weird kind of dilemma. People are always going to want to own properties because there's an incentive if you buy the house in cash. But if it doesn't, if the numbers don't make sense to buy a house with a little bit of money, then people that used to use leverage to get ahead of the game, it's going to be a lot harder for them to do so in the future. Because that's like what America is built off of is leverage. You use one loan to build on top of another loan, and if you make a good few decisions, then you can build some sort of, mini empire. You could own a few, houses on one street and you could make some money, but you need leverage to do so. And they've kind of taken that away from us, and we're shifting to I guess in 10% interest rates, you can't use leverage as much anymore.
Well, I've seen people stack up property like before the crash, taking loan after loan on property A, property B, property C,
Get
and
screwed.
they ended up bankrupt. So
No, that's fair, but at least they were able to take the chance.
Yeah, and I definitely agree in the sense I think there's going to be a lot more rent. There already is. There's a lot more renters than there are home buyers. But I would say this, in the sense of kind of feeling like own nothing and be happy. The thought of you not paying taxes, right? Like you still have to pay your land taxes, your water bills, and all of the things that associate with the ownership of a home, so it doesn't crumble, and right. And so, I think the perspective of just that changes. Instead of you feeling like you own the home, you still own the space, right? If you rent a place that is yours, that is your we would say legal residence, right? And so you have residency over that. But yeah, I don't want to ever the fear over the land. I do think that's more of just an economic turmoil, value representation of the land than anything. But yeah, I do think that it will also get harder. And then I think the block and then stake, you guys had your hands up.
Yeah. Okay. So I've wrote down a whole bunch of points now. So I'll run back through them. So on the leverage piece and the home piece, I think that they're over the next 3, 4, 5 years going to move to 3D printed homes out of a composite
Oh, you're breaking up there a little bit. The block.
material that's recycled, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that any better?
Yeah, much better now. Yes.
Okay, cool. So I was just saying that I think 3D printed homes are going to become more prevalent because it drives down the cost and the availability for people. 40-year mortgages are already a thing, and I agree with you. I don't think rates are going to come down in the near term or for the rest of my lifetime. Would love to be wrong about that, but yeah, the leverage piece is going to be difficult. Um, you'll have to have other assets that you can take collateralized loans against. But I wanted to touch on the topic of like the transition from everybody keeps saying, you own nothing and be happy. I think we're moving from a time where everybody has a selfish interest into a time where we kind of work as a collective species to progress. And so you have a car that sits in your garage all night long that could be out making money or driving people around or being utilized for other resources. So again, it's being wasted sitting in your garage. When we have autonomous cars, then it can go do those other things, provide ride share. Just to the point that was made before, like you would still have the mode of transportation and maybe you own a share in the car, right? And the other people pay to use it, and everybody that owns a share in the car gets a piece of the revenue. What would be wrong with that? I don't care that I would rather own a piece of a way bigger pie than all of a small one. And that's the same thing I do in business. Like I would rather own 10% equity in a company and partner with a bunch of other people that can make it $1 billion company than own all of it and it'd be $1 million company. So maybe I just have a different perspective than most people on that, but that's what I hear when they say you will own nothing and be happy. I look at it as assets are fractionalized and liquid, and you'll have an opportunity to own a piece of a bigger pie and not hoard resources, and things can be more efficient.
well, the blockchain, I believe, as a tool, is uniquely capable of helping provide liquidity. and the fractionalization. So agree with what you're saying. I think that's where maybe not everything, right? But that's where a lot of industries are going to go in that direction.
I completely agree with Locke. I think that's really the key thing here is we have to make money efficient first before a lot of these sort of things come into play, right? With regards to fractionalized ownership and so forth. The first thing that needs to be done is the money needs to be fixed first. And once the money is fixed, a lot of these sort of other fixes will occur naturally. And then maybe we move into this world after that gets done. And that's why I think we're in such a great space because we have the potential to really slot what gets categorized as money and what gets used to make the system more efficient.
Yeah, Block.
Completely
We're
agree.
on the same wavelength tonight, guys. I don't know what you guys drink, but we're on the same frequency.
Well, whoever is talking about a 40-year mortgage, though, that can never be seen as a good thing. That's essentially stealing.
Why? I would love it.
Actually,
I would finance it all day long.
Let me interrupt real quick. Ghost is in here. So Ghost, from like a compounding math point of view, the mortgages, the advantage to the bank, more or less, like it's the diminishing return, whatever per time reduces around 30. That's why there's usually only up to 30-year mortgage. Why would they go to 40?
Well, the main reason, actually, back in 2007, we introduced a niche product in California briefly right before the crash at 50-year mortgage. It was a very, very niche product. So we actually pushed at 50, but it never got traction because the crash happened soon thereafter. Part of the main reason really is to at the time when we introduced it, it was because a lot of the mortgage being issued drastically decreased during that time, right? So they introduced these higher term mortgages to ensure that it becomes affordable on a per monthly payment structure for those involved that are willing to ride out a 5-year stay in that house before selling it, right? No one really lives in their house for more than, I think the study back in 2007 when we did it was 7 years was the max when we people usually move to bigger houses or change house. So there's like a 7-year standard back then of when you will have that income generation as far as a mortgage-backed securities is concerned. The critical point of any mortgage really is the first three years, because the risk after the 3 years of performance of those assets drastically reduce. So you're always just looking at the first 3 years. That's why when they created 3-6 arms, those were such great products, at least for the mortgage industry, that it sort of became the prerequisite of why people started getting houses in California left and right, because people understood it was an investment vehicle more so than a place for you to stay and live out your life.
When I would sign a 40-year all day long because I understand the real tangible value of like cash now is worth more than it is tomorrow. And so I would love to lock in a low rate like these people did during COVID. Like if you got a 30-year fixed during COVID and you're at like 3% or even less than that, that's fantastic, because even if you put down more money up front, you can take the money that you would have been spending on your mortgage and allocate it somewhere else that gets a higher interest rate than what you're paying toward your home. Like people that pay down their home faster, I don't understand, especially if you have a low interest rate. Like you can find a better yield somewhere else for that money than 2 or 3%. Most people don't think like that though. They think, oh, well, it's going to be 40 years. That person's going to die before that house is paid off. Again, to his point just now, like people stay in a home for about 7 years. They use it and then they leave. If you need a hospital bed or you want to go to Disney, you don't buy the hospital. You don't buy the whole Disney World. You rent a room for a little bit, stay, have fun, and then go. So,
no, it's not. That's not the point, though. The point is that every month you're paying on a 30-year mortgage. You're only paying like $500 like your first month. You know, by like the 10th year, maybe you're paying something more. And I understand that a lot of people don't keep their mortgages for more than like 10 years. A lot of people pay them up early. People refinance. I get that. But what concerns me is that people that were qualifying for 30-year, you have a group of people that were not elected by the United States that raised interest rates 5% this year. 5% total. Now it's at, it was at 2.5. Now it's at 7.5. And what you did was you said, okay, well, we don't have the 30-year product because you don't qualify. But if you want to pay us more interest every month and less on your principal and do a 40-year, that works. And
I think
because your money's just so devalued that a 40-year term. I'm not even 30, and I know that you're not going to hold on to it most likely for 40 years, but you're still just giving the bank money. You're paying interest. That's all you're paying. You're not building any equity.
No, you
Well, Lee, it's an investment thesis, right? I think at the end of the day, don't think of a house as far as a place for you to sleep and your kids to grow up and enjoy. That's part of it. Yes, it's a big part for a lot of families. But when you start to think about it, really, why do you pay 21% on your credit card if you can consolidate to do a line of equity that pays, right now 7% or 6% or 5%, similar to what you're paying on a monthly mortgage, right? That's the theory that a lot of people sort of miss out on, right? They go into these cycles of, okay, well, I got to have a house and I'll have my credit card, and not realize that there's a better way to do things for your money and make it work better for you, right? And it's the same thing with regards to 40-year, whether it's a 30-year or 40-year, it's an investment thesis. If you can pay $500 versus $700 and then maintain that and bank the fact that you can have capital appreciation because you think the market is completely tanked today, then that's your investment thesis, right? So it's just an investment thesis, and we build these vehicles to accommodate these theses and theory of what the market will absorb and what the market will want to buy into. So these are all natural. I actually like the fact that the house mortgage market needs to crash now because it's critical, because nobody can afford it, man. Nobody can afford it, and it needs to crash at least for a number of years to go back to some sort of normalcy where people can afford houses again and be able to buy their own homes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Steak, I saw you wave there, man. I know you got your hand up. Please, I know you've been patient. Go ahead, and then I think Shellfish had her hand up, and then Kingsman.
Let me
Yeah, thanks, man.
let me interject real quick. Sorry.
Right.
On the interest rate thing, to address his point, if you extend the time period from say 30 to 40 years, in the first few months, the way the compounding tables work, you're paying mostly interest, right? So if you go from say 30 to 40 years, those first few months, well, really years, you're increasing the percentage of interest that's being paid and reducing the amount that you're actually paying down the principal. So
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Well, if you want to pay on the principal, just make two monthly payments and split your payment in half.
Can we move on, please?
Yeah, let's. I know you've had your hand raised. Please, Steak. Thank you.
Yeah, because don't get me wrong, I was like the fifth or the sixth person. That's my problem. But we kind of moved away from the subject for like 7 times, and then we go in depth into detail without going back to the entire narrative. So my point is a little bit mute. But we were talking about the actual. We started actually out by teaching our kids math. That's where we started for the rest of the space. That's how far we dilated away from the point. So thanks for that, everyone. And then we moved on towards the older generation not getting that. And I think everything that we talk about in a societal manner and where it's going boils down to, are you afraid of a dystopian future? Are you critical of doing the right thing, or are you actually positive with the benefits that it brings? And everything that everyone raises is a valid point for their perspective. However, I think that we can all agree on the fact that the people that are creating the solution also created the problem. Morally, regardless of the fact whether I'm positive, fearful, or critical of the future, morally, I have an issue with that. Now, if I look at this space, and if I hear at this space and many spaces before it in other times, then I would love if a space like this would actually become our politics in the future. Can you imagine listening to politics and have spaces go like this? that they actually chew down on a subject and you listen in as a civilian to a bunch of people that, mind you, it could be a little bit more structured and researched on topics, but if you do this full time, you can do that. That would be a great way to go forward with a lot more trust, because that's the issue that we're all struggling with. Um, the issue of trust is that I trust in the technology. I have faith in humanity. I trust in the progress of our society and our civilization. But if you look back at it, that the power itself corrupts, and we're very aware of that. So I think that there is some grounds for being fearful or being critical on it. I think it's very healthy to do that. I think it's very healthy to keep the powers in check. And right now, I feel that we are very far away from that. We don't have any grasp as a civil society on the powers at be, because they just do what they want to do. And I think that could use a little bit more readjusting. I don't really want to go towards the revolutionary front of it, but it would be very sad if it would have to come down to that before they listen. So my proposal to that would be a lot more pacifist and peaceful, and say that everyone in this space, actually, I'm talking to all of you here, I would say go into politics. You actually owe it to society to take that position there, and do it within now and 20 years. Actually go there. Maybe it's going to be a small position, maybe it's going to be a big position, but try to mingle yourself from a regional or national perspective, and have a say on this, because there are too few people that are unaware of how big this entire impact is. They are full of specialists with just one special thing, and they don't have the time, because they have a busy job, in researching all this shit that is coming up. And we're a bunch of specialized generalists in this space, and luckily we're growing, but we're going to need a lot of people with their heads screwed up right to understand what is happening, to actually steer it in the right direction. So personally, I look at it from a timeline perspective, and I'd say it's 2022 to almost 23 right now. And in 2040, most of the boomers will have died down, and most of the millennials will be 20 years older, and go naturally into positions of powers. Within those next 20 years, you got to steer yourself towards a career change and go that direction. That would be my message. So please go back to 40 or 50-year-old mortgages, but I might drop off then.
Before you drop off, Stick, I think you put in some good points, and I just want to interject. I think you're looking at this from civilized European culture with regards to being a pacifist and in creating change. I think if you start to look at what's happening globally, a revolution is necessary. There is no if, ends, or buts. A revolution will happen no matter what. Whether it's if you
Gandhi
fight,
Gandhi had a revolution. Gandhi had a revolution as well, mate. It doesn't always have
absolutely.
to be with bloodshed.
But that's what's not going to happen here, because it's there's too much at stake. it's there's too much at
You know,
stake. I mean, whether you indicate the Ukrainian
I
Russian
like
as a
the pun.
start to this stuff, there's just way too much at stake, that a revolution throughout our history is necessary, almost necessary to happen to inflict this change. You can't go about this passively. If you're talking about even changing the monetary, system, it's not a passive sort of let's all sort of group and discuss
it's
this for years and years.
Hey,
This is going to be a
Ghost,
it's
violent
not,
revolution
Ghost.
before
I
it's
gotta.
implemented.
Hey, Ghost,
Right. Shellfish got their hand up at least. So,
Ghost.
let me just say it's not it doesn't have to be. See, like revolution invokes like ideas of fighting and all this and that. And yes, industries will battle out to serve their customer base, but it's a phase change. It's like when you went from horsepower to
hmm
like from
that's
like
true.
horses to horsepower,
That,
right?
that, that I
Like
completely follow you there. That's true.
What?
I
What?
agree.
Nobody is defined. What is the right thing to do
But can
with
we
this?
move to Shellfish with her hand, because I know how difficult it is to
She had
to
her.
wait that long.
Hey, I had a quick question. Just want to interject. You don't have to listen. But what is the right thing to do with the adoption of this technology? And who is the powers to be? You were talking about that stake. And how are they going to, did they define the right thing? Who's defining it? And how do they intend to impose it? Those are the questions I see. What is the right thing to do with this?
We don't know until it smacks you in the face, and I really say that from like a truth perspective, because with any great technology, you don't know the impact of it. You don't even know how, even when you like launching a network, right? You don't know how that network is truly going to react until it goes live. And so it's kind of one of these things where we have to wait, chicken or egg kind of problem, and we have to take it what it is, and then we have to grab it and say, all right, we can't do this anymore. We got to change this. We shouldn't do that. Shouldn't allow that, because these are the ways that it hurts people.
And I just want to jump in real quick. People think that this is going to be some sort of democratic process. You know, in order for there to be peace, there really has to be some way for us to unify as, you know, as a species. And the only way I see that happening is for, you know, big catastrophe to happen and for there to be one cause where we all unite. Until then, you know, I hope I'm wrong. I don't see anybody, you know, unifying under one umbrella.
Aliens.
And we've had look, we've had I like to say other intelligent species, but Kingsman, man, you've had your hand up for a while. Shellfish, Snake said you had your hand up also, so if you want to go right after Kingsman, please feel free to.
It's such a thank you so much. It's such a brilliant conversation. I have no idea what I jumped into. What I'll say is, my dad was a politician. He died, passed away 2 years ago, and he came from an investment banking kind of background, and decided in South Africa that the end of apartheid and segregation was more important to him from a value perspective than making money. And he spent his entire life as a member of parliament, fighting for that belief. Um, and South Africa is far from perfect, but it never went through a civil war. It went through a transition of power from white dominance to one man, one vote, which was the right way to go about it. So I think transition and big change can take place without violence. I think South Africa is a perfect case in point. The other thing is, I don't necessarily believe it's very strange when people talk about home ownership, because in Europe or Germany, it's a very different mindset. Rental is perfectly acceptable. You pay low rent and you live out your life and you're incredibly happy. And I think there's this misconception we get taught at school. It's buy a house, get a career, get into debt for 50 years, get married, have 3 kids, and you're going to be happy. And that's not the truth, guys. That's not the truth. That's the paradigm that generations before us have set, and it's up to us. And I loved what I can't remember who it was who was talking earlier on, but talking about the transition and the change, and essentially, making yourself heard and so forth. I was just looking at this clip saying internet may just be a passing fad as millions give up on it, right? That's what they said about the internet. And that's pretty much what they've said about everything when it comes to a change in technology. There's fear. People are terrified of change. They are. That is the one thing. That is the one certainty we know. People do not like change. I work in software delivery, and the three favorite terms that anyone who doesn't work in it like to use are process, precedent, and protocol. Precedent being it's been done like this for 20 years, ergo it has to work. And we must accept that, and we must just move forward with that. Just because generations before did it a particular way, it means it's the right way for us to do it. Unfortunately, technology moves, and governments and regulators play catch up. I mean, if you look at Blockbuster, they're a perfect case in point. Streaming came along, Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. If you look at Uber and the cabs, Uber came along, and suddenly there's regulation flying about, particularly in the London, with black cabs now fighting and trying to, legal get them sort of taken off the streets and so forth. But the technology comes first, and then the regulators and the governments try figure it out in terms of how are we going to deal with this. Because the reality is this: if you provide a more customer centric journey for anyone that is beneficial to them, they are going to take it, and then it has to be regulated. That just wanted to feed into that.
And I don't think it's changed that,
Thank you for
us as
saying this, man.
species have
Fucking awesome.
an issue with. I welcome change whenever I know there's going to be a positive outcome. What I feel the human species is scared of is inconvenience.
And change is an inconvenience because you have to learn this new technology. You have to adapt this new technology, and the inconvenience is you taking the time to adopt it. Adopt it.
Yeah, there's something called a switching cost that you can account for, and that's what you're talking about.
And
I mean,
To
there's
learn
three.
this thing.
They're kind of three pillars, which I think, successful organizations, your big beasts like your Googles, your Amazons, and all of them, they follow the same three pillars, which is inspect, adapt, and change. They are well aware of the fact that you look at the demographic, you look at the market, you have to harness a competitive advantage by making sure that you cater for the changes that are coming. The one certainty we know is that things do not remain static. Otherwise, there is no such thing as progress. So we know this is coming. It's a when. It's not an if. And it's just how it's going to be adopted. I certainly know from regulatory perspectives within the UK, they're doing a lot of work on this. Holding kind of with, I'd say, not legacy institutions, but institutions who aren't onboarded yet, and those who are onboarded in things like NFTs, metaverse, cryptocurrencies, etc., like this. And they're trying to kind of amalgamate the two and say, how do we regulate this? How do we figure out? How do we bring traditional into this new world order that is essentially going to take place? I think it's beneficial, and again, it comes down to the same point. If it adds value and it makes someone's life better, because so many examples have been provided on this call about how this can make people's lives better, why would you not do it? Why would you not proceed with it? You have to.
Well, this is kind of a subject that I, in some sense, try to talk about frequently. It's matching the business model because, okay, all the people that lived before us were not stupid. So they developed these financial markets in certain ways with certain structures, right? And they're connected in various ways and yada yada. Technology is usually like a mirror of the people using it. And so what the difficulty here is, how do you match people that understand all the different business models with the people that can build the technology? And
You get people like us in politics, Karma.
well, there's no way in hell I'd ever go into politics.
Sure you will. I'm gonna drag you there, mate. Sure you will.
No.
I expect you there on the other side of the pond.
But you got to match the people that understand how the markets, because I remember when like in the, anyway, I don't want to go on. I'll shut up.
I agree with you 100%. And I think the thing is, at this point in time, we think we're incredibly intelligent, like this human species. We think we know it all, right? But just back in the days of Galileo, when comets were an optical illusion, and the tides had nothing to do with the moon, and all of that. That was a fact. I mean, back in the day, it's not so long ago, the Earth was flat. At any particular point in time, each generation has had their version of Stephen Hawkins, and everyone has believed 100% with absolute certainty that they are correct. And we're exactly the same. I guarantee you, generations that go above and beyond us are going to look back at us and go, did they really think that way? Were they really that daft? Because that's just ridiculous. And I think
here's the. Let me finish. Okay, I had one back half of my point. The form factor can change, and this is what confuses people. This is the change part, because ultimately the same functionality ends up being performed, but the way that the job is done changes, right? So I'm sending a payment, okay, it goes through correspondent banking. Cool. I sent a payment. That was the functionality. Oh, a payment gets sent and it goes through a some sort of crypto network, and you got it. Okay. I mean, I don't care. I'm glad you got it. faster and cheaper, but like all I did was send a payment. Like the form factor might change, but the at least I'll encourage people to try and keep an eye on the essence of what's being done. I think it'll help you see clearly.
Yes, I kind of like saying the journey remains the same. What's happening in the middle is irrelevant. Actually, it's inconsequential. And to the point that, when you talk about internet of value and transferring value, I think we're in a very luxurious. I'm assuming everyone on this call is in a westernized country who has access to banks, who doesn't have to travel 20 kilometers to get to a bank or even have a bank account. I certainly know in Africa, there's a tiny percentage of the population that have access to banks. So when you are able to, but they do have access to phones. And when you have something called the Internet of Value, where you are able to transfer value from one person to another over a phone and not rely on a central which people don't have access to, I think that's progress.
But that's a technological advancement. You're talking about the imposition of a new world order, open close quote, on this country and on humanity. How is that going right now?
It's not going well at all.
No, it's not going well because it's being forced down their throats, and it's resulting in the loss of rights and freedom and autonomy. You got to start there. You can't start from the bottom up and say this technology is going to impose a new world order because it's, as everybody's been saying here, it's financially more sound to do it. You have to start from a different perspective. It's not going well at all. Not in this country and not anywhere else. It's almost delusional to think you're going to start at the bottom and impose some technology on a group of people and say, use this. This is part of the new world order. Oh, by the way, in the process of imposing it, we're going to take away rights. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. That stuff it needs to be hashed out, guys. It's not going to work.
But
I don't think that's Ripple's plan of attack
I
here.
don't think
They're going after, and I'll say this and literally I'll stop talking, but they're going after a business model to enable the banks to make more money. They're not really, it's an improvement. I don't know that you could equate it to a new world order. I mean, it's not going to cut it with people. You're talking about owning homes. Try and tell somebody they can't own a home because it's not financially as sound as some of the ideas you're saying. Your ideas may be correct, but the barrier is how are you going to tell somebody that and how are they going to swallow it?
Well, not that they can't, but financially it makes sense to not own the home. And just I think it goes to, like Kingsman said, it's more of that particular thing is more of an idealism, as in like Europe, right? They don't really look to have home ownership. They rent and they're happy and they kind of go on and they live with their lives. And I think that probably is going to be more so the perspective over here too. More people will just rent and kind of not really worry about the home ownership of it. But yeah, I think when I hear New World Order, I don't think of it from a technology perspective. I think of it from an idealistic international setting for just the way that we value the currencies between each of the countries that exist. And so New World Order really to me means hopefully in this case of New World Order, it's everybody on the level playing field instead of having one distinct currency that rests upon the rest of the world that as a reserve.
In death, that's a good idea. But as Steak was saying, will the powers that be, what is their vested interest in not doing that versus what is it in actually implementing it? What power will they lose
That's
in
a
that instance?
complicated answer.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it though for me is that those who own the assets would probably be those in the most powerful positions, and those powerful players are already the ones who own all of the assets. So
And what
sure
in
that
death? What's the implication for the little person in this new world order that you just outlined? What's the implication for the little person?
I think it's super bright in the aspect, and Kingsman, I'll let you go right after me. I'm sorry, man. I think it's super bright aspect of those who want to work hard to be part of society and to progress in a technological way, whether it be computing or whatever developments that is needed in our society from a job perspective, and that those who don't want to, who want to just collect a UBI or would love to just live off of some system like that where they can get their rent paid, they got some video games, got some food, and they're going to live the rest of their life. I think you'll also have that. And so, I think it gives opportunity for those who will strive much easier to actually get somewhere in life.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about we're not talking about forcing things on people. People aren't really going to adopt something that's forced on them. And I go back to the examples I've used before. People like the path of least resistance. They like doing less and getting more. That's the very definition of value, maximizing the amount of work not done. So if it's a choice between me walking to a video store, making sure that they've got these videos available, the latest releases all sold out. Back in my day, I actually had to rent the video machine itself, the Beta and the VHS, and then take it back, plug it into your TV, all of that. Or now you just go onto Amazon or Netflix and you stream. That's not forced on anyone. That's just something that's been provided, and it's making someone's life easier. In the same way that you know black cabs within the UK had a terrible reputation for overcharging, going ridiculous routes and being very rude to customers. Uber's come along and they've changed the game plan. Now customer centricity is far more apparent within the black cabs within the UK, but nothing has been forced upon anyone. It was an option provided to the population, and they made a choice. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be forced. I think you're going to have a value stream that is more beneficial to the population, and they're going to make a choice to use it.
And what's the cost of that? It's a convenience, and it makes them more money, and it makes more financial sense.
Most people will give up
At what
freedom
price?
for security all day long.
Yeah, well, that a lot of people are not. You may think everybody is, but take a look at this country and what's happening to it right now. They're not willing to, and they're moving away from some of these woke corporations that are imposing that upon
Society
them.
is very
Period.
segregated.
More
Well,
than
it's not necessarily segregated
no,
per se.
more than that. Like I was saying earlier, it's the shift from the centralized where you have the capital expenditure. You got to buy this machine, right? Then you can rent this VHS or CD and stick it in there. Versus when you're streaming, there's zero capital expenditure, and it's all marginal cost. It's the cost curves shifting from capital expenditure to marginal expenditure.
It's excellent. I would agree. It's common sense. Why wouldn't they do it? But what is it that's being imposed with that? Are there other strings and other things they're trying to do? I think some of the legislators are very concerned about CBDCs and privacy and monitoring what's going to happen. Is that being addressed? I think your adoption, if people feel safe in partaking in this kind of a benefit, if they feel protected, if they feel their individual autonomy, their rights are not going to be completely diminished or tread upon, then they'll do it. Otherwise, they're not going to. I mean, they're leaving in droves. Look what happened to Twitter and their well, we'll take 2,500. I mean, it's crazy. It's the imposition of what they believe is right on other people through force. You can't argue that that's not happening, guys, because it is.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening. Let's I think it was Shellfish and then Alex.
Alex, and then I think we'll close it up. We went a couple minutes over already, but this has really been this is one of those where I've really enjoyed our conversation. But Shellfish and Alex, go ahead, guys, and then we'll close up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the whole AI movement with like the neural networks. We are like totally building a system based on the human brain where it's got the logical numbers, the fundamentals of science and math. And right now we're seeing a big push for the NFTs and the art movement, which is totally a balance. And I think it gives kind of like the builders more inspiration. Like the more NFTs you buy, the more art you incorporate, the music. Those are the people that inspire the builders to build more shit for us. Like that, it gives them a break, and it shows them that there's other stuff that can be built. And I know Karma has always been beating that drum about how we have so much more coming our way. It just hasn't even been invented yet. Well, that's where like the artists come into play throughout history, through the Renaissance. The people is jokers and you've got Michelangelo and all these amazing things that we still look up to today and inspire us now. So I don't know. I love that this is like this is coming out this week that we had the launch of the XRP NFTs. But I think we should like I don't know think about how Ripple and like the symbology of maybe buying an NFT and having a conversation with somebody and say, hey, I bought this off the blockchain and this is amazing art that people are doing, or hey, did you know music can happen? And I just was in the chat this morning and going, gosh, we have this amazing AI that's creating art for us. I can't wait for the science ones to come out or the math. Like, can you imagine the possibilities of all those STEM programs and STEAM that are in the schools right now? Like the kids being able to go, hey, what if I put this and this together? What is that going to create for the world? These are like really cool things that are in our super near future, and I think if we take the fear out of it and look at like all the potential and like so we have like the silly memes right now and the NFTs, then it's time to be silly. I don't know. That's when you grow and learn is when you're playing and having fun. I don't know. That's my little box. I'll get down.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I agree. And Alex, you wanna finish up, man, and we'll close up right after you.
Yeah, man, I just wanted to be able to touch on like, the general conversation about obviously, where we're moving with technology and I mean, a lot of these things definitely do equate to an accounting system that, will revolutionize the way that everyone, trades value across, all these different platforms, and it will bring everything together. Um, the one thing that I heard through most of the conversations today, I mean, most of these people, like most of us in these rooms, actually from a democratic base of like living and how we view politics. Because if you don't agree with something, you can speak out about it. You've got your freedom of speech as well. But when we start talking about you vote for someone to be able to implement something that you believe in, or you believe they're going to take you in the right direction as well. And I mean, I'm down here in Australia, so we do the same thing as what you guys do in the States as well. Um, I think what a lot of people forget as well is, as much as you're voting to be able to get something that you want to happen to be able to happen, there's also the other side of how that system actually works. And when we start looking at the banking system and the way that that's actually been built up over generation of generation, from back in the days when it was kings and queens and the ownership of the land. And if you look at it in a different kind of way, imagine imagine the banking system as still being your kings and queens. Now, the taxation that goes back to the government to be able to give you, your base living costs, your infrastructure that you need. Some countries do better than other countries as well. Um, if you start looking at the way the banking system actually runs, and what happens with this technology that we're trying to be able to get through as well, you can vote every day of the week for whoever you think is going to implement these new systems to be able to get things right. But at the end of the day, it's those kings and queens in the background that are actually deciding if your Democratic Party is actually going to be able to implement those situations as well. And I'm not saying it's full deep state or anything like that, but when it comes to big decisions, there's no reason why those banks, and they have done it many, many times before, they've held a gun to the government's head and said, listen, and they've done it here in Australia as well. If you guys implement these systems without us actually getting ready to be able to actually run with what your decisions have been, or whether they're ready to be able to do it, or whichever, the change won't happen. They'll make sure that if you look at all the funding of all your government bodies, that's exactly how it's always run. Now, most of the wars that we've had in the past, like most wars are actually like both sides were probably funded by exactly the same banking cartel. So when we start talking about this technology, which everyone here is 100% for, I love where it's going to go. It's the banking system is what is going to slow the adoption of all these things down. Unless they can get in front of it, they won't accept it. So
You're talking about the credit creation process that occurs through the fractional reserve business model. Um, and yes, it has funded a lot of things. Um, the thing with crypto is, well, there are some networks that are inflationary. But you know, when you have a network that's not inflationary, I'm kind of answering a prior question from somebody a minute ago also. It adds some discipline to the system. So if all the different currencies are in one way, shape, or form held up to, like, so how is it denominated in this thing that's not inflationary? Then it brings some discipline into the system. I think that's where we're going. But you
yeah,
do actually want that credit creation. You want that elasticity, etc. Blah blah. So, but I think Death. Are we about out?
That's it. We're closing out. This has been a really great conversation, guys. I know I say it every day, but we wouldn't be hosting these if it wasn't for the valuable information that people bring in here and speak about every single day. The ideals, the perspectives, the point of views that everybody brings is it's so enlightening because you can look at things from so many different perspectives and make your own judgment call about what feels right to you. And
I agree, man. It was a great space.
It really was.
Awesome that you point that out, and also great number for a space too.
Just so happened to be that way. I know. But yeah, of course, everything, nothing that was said tonight was financial advice. Panelist views do not necessarily represent those of Ledger Scale. We host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, and on Wednesday we host a focused topic space from 5 to 6. We do have some crypto addresses up at the top if you guys would like to donate to the Ledger Scale Nonprofit Foundation. And I really hope to see everybody here tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's engagement.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening. Thanks for talking.
yeah, thank you guys, everybody, for coming.